Colleagues, the two organizations are about to sign an MOU, a partnership, which is very important. I don't want to talk to the details of that. I'm going to hand over to Mr. Sizwe Tati to outline that. And after Mr. Tati, he'll be followed by Mr. Gregory Mufokeng. Thank you. Over to you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mandu, Program Director. The President of Black Business Council in his absentia, I don't know whether he's here, Teni Musimane, Mr. Tobola Maponya, Gregory Mufokeng, CEO of Black Business Council, ladies and gentlemen and colleagues. At National Housing Finance Corporation, we are very pleased to have finally come to participate in this webinar, at least to engage with a key stakeholder, such as the Black Business Council. Just to highlight from the perspective of the organization, what do we see as the purpose of the relationship, the Memorandum of Understanding? Amongst others, it is important for us to establish a very sustainable relationship that will help both of us or our organizations to achieve their mandate or strategic objectives. We need to ensure that our functions are coordinated, our roles and responsibilities focused around our mandate, which is human settlement development, and in our case, financing as a financing institution, that all our activities get coordinated. So we get to understand your needs better, you get to understand how we operate, and then we seamlessly bank, if you like, the projects that are opportunities for the members of Black Business Council. Amongst others, is also to promote a very cohesive and effective working relationship on matters that deepen access to finance on affordable housing. Where we emphasize deepening for us, it relates to, as national housing, we should be actually treading where other traditional banking institutions are not necessarily able to. So our requirements should be such that we are able to bend backward to extend a helping hand for Black business members who want to enter the space, who otherwise would not have been enabled by normal traditional institutions. But that hand-holding needs to grow and evolve in its nature to the extent that those members are able to be bankable in their own rights. But the engagement does not have to start at that incubation level. It can even engage at a level where those who are already operational need to bank very large projects are enabled through our assistance and support. So we can refer you to our traditional partners or intermediaries who are geared specifically for that. But I would be remiss if I don't mention that the components of these relationships are meant to be aligned with the legislative environment. First of all, there's a Housing Act that creates the imperative for us to do what we do. There's PFMA, there's also BBBE Act. There's also the Construction Sector Charter Council with its code of practice, code of good practice. And then there's a sector development and transformation policy. All of those combined together give us an imperative duty on us to extend all our resources to ensure that empowerment does take place. So this memorandum is geared at achieving that. And this cooperation needs to cascade. You talk about national level, provincial level, and even at a local level. And in its broadest definition, we should be focused at making sure we promote small, medium, and micro enterprise development in the human settlement space, as guided by the policy framework that I've just touched on now. But let me just give a context of where we are as an organization. That since creation in 1996 as a development finance institution, we remain a state-owned entity, 100% owned by the South African government, total assets in the vicinity of about 6 billion and borrowings of 1.6. We are meant as a Schedule 3A institution to remain a self-sustaining institution. But primarily, our vision is to serve household evolving needs of access and affordability to adequate housing, so that we support the broader goal of our government in terms of quality developing, quality living environments. We are a national organization operating in all provinces and therefore having the capacity to be able to service all players nationally. Some of you might recall that the state did a consolidation of various DFRs. And in our case, we had to be put together who belonged to the Department of Human Settlement, an institution that was Ralph and Nacha, where in 2018, all three of us were brought together. That merger was concluded. And as a way forward, the state still envisages to create what is called a Human Settlement Development Bank. We are at that stage now where the department is preparing submissions to be taken to cabinet so that the process then passes on to parliament for the promulgation of the bank. What we see between our current status and banking status is that we should be able, with a sizable balance sheet, to engage projects of human settlement from the time that there's what is called the creation of new cities. From the time that the new catalytic projects that are gazetted by the state get announced, from the time that some of you might have been following the process of strategic infrastructure projects have been gazetted, so that we're able to do large projects in a proactive fashion, de-risk them from the beginning, and be able to take them to bankability stage, in particular in our segment market. And that's what will distinguish between what is now national housing today and what the bank's capabilities will be. So the sizable capital that we expect from the state, we are engaging now to negotiate that size of amount with an exchange of our business case and business plan. We will not be making an announcement until when the bill is passed by a parliament, where Treasury would have made a commitment and we know what the specific amount is going to be. But it's going to be a game changer. It's going to be a different institution from what is known today. But at a high level, we will be expected to maximize the development impact, to make sure that we transform this sector of human settlement, to ensure that we provide what is called additionality in the development finance market, and do all of that in a self-sustaining phase. So this is the stage of where we are sitting to date, and hope by engaging various stakeholders, one of which is Black Business Council, it is to align our efforts to ensure that we enable this empowerment, we enable the fact that people who want to participate in the build industry are able to do so effectively for their own livelihood, and we provide enablers from the funding element and angle point of view. So, Chair, I think that would be the broader assessment and perspective of how we want to see our collaboration with Black Business Council. Let me pause at this stage, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, CEO. Colleagues, the president of the Bbcbe, Mr. Denny Masimene, has just joined us. A very warm welcome to you, sir. We welcome you in our midst. To our VIPs, as the CEO has said, we as the National Housing Finance Corporation, we exist to serve household evolving needs. The reason we say they're evolving is because we recognize that some of our end users could be in the need of a rental. Not everybody is needing to own a house. Some of them would like to own, so we provide ownership funding as well. And some of them are in a space where they'd like to incrementally expand their household through adding another room or buying of a geyser. We do recognize the need of our people on the ground, but as the NHFC, we are a wholesaler. We do not fund the end users directly. And by end users, I'm talking to those beneficiaries who we exist to serve. Now, this is where you come in, members of the BBCBE. You are very critical. You are an important channel in the whole chain for us to reach the end users. So you heard it from the CEO. We extend a helping hand. We will bend backwards to accommodate you, but we will do all this within the legislation. We'll do it within the governance matters, because that matters as well. We don't want to serve you and we are not doing it appropriately. So thank you very much, Mr. Tati. I will hand over to Mr. Mofokeng and we will then continue with our program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Program Director Nemandu Mamatela, to the Acting CEO of the NHFC, that is Tati, and to Hlekazi Viwe Kweta, the pillar that has been very supportive of this partnership between our two organizations. I recognize you. Let me also recognize the president of the Black Business Council in the Built Environment, Dr. Denny Masimeni, and the treasurer, the deputy president, Meki Lemteto. I would also like to recognize the role played by Mr. Tobela Maponya in his capacity as the chair of the Human Settlement Subcommittee, the subcommittee that has played a very pivotal role to get us to this point where we are now today officially launching the partnership between the Black Business Council in the Built Environment as well as the NHFC. Colleagues, what this means for us is that we have now taken a further step in terms of creating an enabling environment to increase participation of our members in the human settlements sector. Access to finance is one of those perennial challenges that our members continue to face when they have projects that they have identified and they want to implement. And obviously, in this respect, the NHFC was a natural partner as a development finance institution that has got a developmental approach in terms of funding, especially emerging developers, emerging contractors in this space. And what we look forward to as the BBCB is the successful implementation of this partnership, of this MOU. And obviously, we look forward to our emerging developers being supported. We look forward to our emerging contractors being supported. We especially look forward to the benefit that will also cascade to our designated groupings in the form of women, youth, disabled, military vets, and so on. So it means quite a lot for us that we are here today so that we can launch this partnership, as it is critical, for the creation of sustainable developers who are out there trying to deliver various housing solutions, whether one talks about affordable housing, flips, social housing, mixed-use developments, rental stock, township backyard rental stock, participation in the mega project, and so on. We look forward to our members being able to benefit from this partnership. We look forward once again to the creation of sustainable construction companies who will obviously benefit through the funding packages and solutions and products that are there from the NHFC in the form of bridging and project funding. And also we look forward to the creation of quality and decent jobs. As we all know, that as a country, we are facing a mammoth challenge in terms of unemployment. And we are hoping that this partnership will enable our members, both developers and construction companies, to be able to participate in this big program that government has launched around the economic reconstruction program, so that we can then be able to assist government with the creation of quality and decent jobs. And I want to assure our colleagues at the NHFC that we are fully behind the establishment of the Human Settlements Development Bank, and we look forward to being a critical partner in the creation of the bank and also in the implementation of the programs that the bank will obviously initiate and implement in the industry. We obviously, again, are excited about this partnership, and we look forward to what we view as a mutually beneficial partnership between our organizations. Thank you very much, Madam Program Director.
Thank you, CEO, Mr. Mofokeng. Indeed, you've outlined all the synergies between the two entities. The transformation agenda is very similar. The passion, we share the same passion. We share the same intention. And we're going to be very intentional to make this work. As I said, we will look back a year to come. Today is the first anniversary of this very important marriage between the two entities, the collaboration, whereby we're going to see members of the Bbcbe being a very critical partner in terms of us reaching our end users. Thank you very much. I'm going to also take this opportunity to acknowledge Mekile, the Deputy President. A very warm welcome to you, Me. Thank you to be in our midst. I'm going to now call upon my colleague, Mr. Viwe Kweta, who's gonna get to the meat of the issues and just outline the NHFC financing opportunities, because I'm sure that's what all the members are hearing to hear, and you just can't wait to hear that much of what the NHFC can do for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Program Director. And let me acknowledge the President of the Black Business Council, Built Environment, the two CEOs who have set a nice platform to start from, and that background has been clearly outlined. Thanks for that leadership. And acknowledge Mekile as well, as a doyen of the transformation struggles in the Black Business Council and transformation in general, and the executives that are here in general. Mine has been made easy by the background that has been outlined. Whilst I have been given strict conditions that I must keep my presentation very short, I think the opportunity has been given to me by the background that has been given to get straight to it. Gregory has outlined a menu of things, of all the good things they would like to see coming out of this partnership. And that long list, I hope I can endeavor to outline what we have as an offering, as a value proposition, as an offering to the market, and find pockets for all of those things that were listed as the good things that are expected from the NHFC. And on the screen right now, it's a range of products. And it's a range of products, many of which are for an audience like the one we are addressing today, an audience of creators. And that audience of creators, we may say in technical terms, it is on the supply side of the market. And we would want to make sure that when it comes to the different typologies that have been outlined by the various speakers that we would like to finance in the human settlements value chain, that most of those have been accommodated. There are also products here that are for the end users, which I will also outline. But let me perhaps start with the first category. If we were to talk of rental, where people deliberately or temporarily choose to stay in rental accommodation, affordable rental accommodation. For the creators that you are, we offer financing that goes towards rental accommodation. That is creation of stock that will go towards that direction. And there are two major streams in that area. In fact, let me put it this way, there are three streams in that area. Firstly, it is social housing. And I would want to say, in brief terms, social housing finances is a highly subsidized segment where government puts in about 66% of the finance that goes into social housing, and as a result, requires strong regulation to make sure that households that have access to that cover a variety of households that have got affordabilities of households between 1,500 to 15,000. And therefore it is highly regulated because it is highly subsidized. And our financing comes in as debt financing for the 33%, that is the balance of that. And therefore that's rental stock that stays in perpetuity as rental stock, and that developer, whether it's a social housing institution or what we call ODAs, other development agencies, which are more private sector or full companies for profit, would invest in. And therefore they manage that stock according to the regulations that have been set out by SHRA. Then the second category in rental is where you're developing stock, still affordable housing stock that can be accessed, and the sweet spot being about 7,000 and below in terms of annual rental. That is not subsidized, but the developers will finance those developments on the strength of cash flows that have been demonstrated by an application that we would be financing. And therefore that financing, because it relies on the incomes that are coming from that rental stock, your typical project financing, we would finance for a period, a long-term financing for a period of 12 years and beyond, so that from the rental income, you prepay the stock that you would have built on the basis of that loan. And the third category, and the category that is promising to be a growing category, a category that we would like to see more of innovations, is what we call the backyard rental, where in our townships there are opportunities, a lot of opportunities to densify, to make sure that households supplement their incomes with developing within their properties. And that currently we are financing via our intermediaries, and we would want a growth of that. We have seen traction in Gauteng, the cities in Gauteng and the city of Cape Town. But still, that market is still big and need to be growing, and we are looking forward to innovations that are coming out of this market. That's the rental category of products that we are offering. We also then offer, in this screen, it's written as subsidy and affordable housing finance. Now, there are two categories here. Let me start with the affordable housing. Affordable housing would be to produce for the market affordable housing, gap housing, and our sweet spot there are prices at 800,000 and below, and the lower the better, because we want to get to gap housing. And it could be freehold titles, it could be sectional titles, and the period of financing there, depending on the size of the project and how it is phased, it's much more shorter term finance of about, let's say, 5 years, but it depends project by project when it can be finished, how is the market take, and how do we phase it in terms of the market demand. But location in all the development that we look at are important, whether it's an infill or it's a greenfield. It is always important that location is good, because the location is a factor of how the market takes on that development. And so the developers that are developing that for the bond market, here is the challenge for the financing of that type of development. And then there's subsidy housing. And subsidy housing, they've been put together there for subsidy contractor financing. That is, those contractors that now do not start their own development, but they get appointed by a municipality or a provincial department to develop, to deliver on housing units. It is your typical tender. And your typical tender, any contractor, big or small, any contractor needs working capital. The difference is that the bigger contractors, on the back of their bankers, they can raise working capital, they can raise debt from their own banks. And in this case, we want to make sure that contractors that have been issued with tenders do not struggle to have working capital to buy material, to pay salaries, and to continue on site in spite of delays in payments that they may confront from time to time. So that is the financing, and it may include a number of initiatives by the employers in terms of set aside or mainstream or all of those things that are being created out there. Going further, I'll jump on to saying, in some instances, we get drawn into set-asides that have been put by the departments or municipalities, and the municipalities or whatever sphere it is, we get drawn to saying, please support this group of contractors as a set-aside, and we would like to see them getting access to work, right packages that are put for work that they can cope with, that those would be smaller contractors, perhaps new entrants, and provide any support that you require to support. And we call that program and fund management. And the reason being that the fund management part tries to solve the artificial problem that we're currently dealing with in our environment, that of slow payments. So that before you can create financing instruments and all other things, first you eliminated this problem of slow payment to contractors. But you know that the problem is not just about finance. You support them in terms of their financing systems, you support them about how they make good traction on site, and what we call support and mentorship. That would be around program and fund management, and its orientation is more on the smaller contractors that get supported as a group. Now, those products that I've outlined are largely for the creators that are sitting in this audience. But I know that developments, all developments require a market, a vibrant market for taking the outputs and securing the bonds. We've got a product here that is called FLISP, which is designed for individual households that require a subsidy, and that subsidy serves as a form of a deposit. It reduces significantly the price that they pay for a house. It's a useful subsidy, and the individual households will link up with the agents that are active for that particular affordable housing project, because every developer will have, whether in-house or external agents, agents that are selling the packages for that particular development. And those agents, it's important that they know how to link with FLISP so that they make the applications upfront for beneficiaries that qualify for the products that are there. And FLISP is very useful. Banks also are our channels, but also individuals that are interested in products that are marketed in that development, they can come directly to us as well. And it is useful to strengthen the market side of that development, because you take people perhaps who would have struggled to afford the development in that gap housing development, but with this subsidy, then they are able to come in. Then there's incremental housing finance, which is more than for the general public. We deliver it to intermediaries, households, but households that continue to want to improve their households, whether through extensions of their household or starting a house afresh. And it goes a long way also for households that are in formal settlements, upgrading projects, or even in projects that will be driven by the rapid land release in terms of the new products. And lastly, then we've got strategic partnerships and equity investments. And strategic partnerships and equity investments do a range of things, engage with private developers, other development agencies, and complement all the streams that are provided and outlined in this slide. I hope that this gives a menu for the creators to see what are the projects that they have at hand, or projects in their pipeline, to see whether there is an avenue to have a relationship with the Nhfc. Now we come to deepening financing, and I want to throw a challenge to the Bbcbe around a product that we are sitting with in terms of contractor finance. It is financing for those contractors that have been given a tender. You tendered, you win a tender, and part of that tender required that you be financed. Now that you've got a tender, where do you go for financing? You come to us. You come to us, whether it's a woman-owned contractor, youth-owned contractor, Black-owned contractor, and this product is directed at those contractors. And it's financing working capital on a certificate discounting basis. This loan gives you a maximum, depending on what you are assessed for in the size of the project that you're delivering and your requirements, up to 15 million without tangible security. When I talk tangible security, in simple terms, I'm saying you don't have to have a balance sheet that can back the 15 million. You don't have to pledge your property as security, because we're targeting it for contractors that do not have that asset strength to back a 15 million security, but they have got the capability to enter a project and exit it. And we would want to oil that process with working capital. And that sweet range is between 4 million and 15 million. And we've got arrangements, various arrangements for securities, including shared accounts. And its ease of entry, and it's an area that we putting to the Black Business Council to saying, we feel like we're short of takers in this product. And therefore, if there are hurdles of entry that we may not be visible to, we need to talk about this, because it is important that we talk about this product as an avenue for entry of the range of contractor and ownership, particularly for women, youth, and people living with disabilities, and to increase takers. It is very important. And it is an area then we think that as a way forward, perhaps if there are areas of advocacy where we engage with the employers to saying, how do they adjust rules in order to accommodate contractors to access this finance, let that be looked at. But if we've got blind spots, let those blind spots be shown to us about how we can improve this product. I've talked about the range of contractors. Really, this product is meant for emerging contractors. Large contractors and established contractors have got balance sheets and they can put security in place. But you find slowly, because some of the contractors grew through this product, take advantage of it and what it offers as a benefit, which is perhaps it is a positive outcome in terms of growth, but those contractors can move to other financiers. But it is meant for emerging and ease of entry of contractors. And that is the challenge that we are putting to the stakeholders, particularly women-owned contractors as well as youth-owned contractors, to come forward and saying, here are our members that do not have access to finance. If we're still short of a pipeline that comes forward, we devise strategy to saying, those who appoint upstream, who appoint contractors, how do we make sure that the set-asides, if there are set-asides that have been developed by those spheres, or the appointment of contractors, let's make sure that they appoint more of youth and more of women, so that there's no shortage of takers of this product. And I think that it is an area of advocacy that we need to be considering. And in line then with the above, I've just picked one stream, which is the stream of contractors, but I can talk across all the streams that I had outlined on the supply side to say, we're devising financing packages and concessions to make sure that we create that pipeline and we create that appetite. And those revolve around pricing. And for all of those designated groups, Black-owned contractors, we are committed to finance at prime less. That's the first commitment that we want to make in terms of concessions. We want to provide discounted fees to make sure that it is attractive for the contractors to gain appetite and walk to Nhfc with the products that they are finding. And in some instances, consideration of equity investment to enhance transformation and viability of projects, meant to be transformation or viability, and collaboration in this area. It is very, very critical. These are bold steps that we are taking. These are bold steps that we would want to attract and rather have a good problem of a queue of people who want finance that we can't service than a shortage of those, because we want more to enter the market and play gainfully in that market and in a very sustainable fashion. And I had outlined the constraints of a pipeline. And as a result, we are also want to reinforce the supply of the pipeline by developing incubators that are servicing. So the starting point Mr. Tati outlined this and said, when we talk incubator, we're not prescribing that anything transformation has to start organically at an incubator level. There are a range of women-owned contractors, there are a range of Black-owned contractors, youth-owned contractors that can enter at any level depending on their capabilities. They can anchor big developments, they can come and apply for finance without requiring support and get the concessions that they deserve because of their strength. But we're saying there may be a shortage of pipeline that we need to create. And that shortage of pipeline, it is for contractors that are new entrants, developers that are new entrants, whether they want to pursue affordable housing for mortgage or for rental. We're saying there we would want to consider debt financing as well as equity. And that debt financing as equity strengthen viability and that transformation. We would want to build solid capabilities to make sure that once they enter the market, they are not left to fend for themselves and fail in some instances. We would want to provide them with support. And this we draw from lessons where we've done these things before, but without adequate support, that does not work very well. We know that there are constraints that are outside of the control that is between Bbcbe and Nhfc. And therefore, there's some advocacy in the bigger environment. How do ODAs that want to enter social housing, how do they access land in favorable terms? Because social housing generally offers land in most instances in favorable terms because it is squeezed in terms of incomes that are coming from that. But how do you make sure that in those favorable terms, you still give preference to these categories that are targeted? And then the collaborations that come out of that. So this is the next step that we want to build so that we feed that pipeline and ensure as many entrants in these various streams are able to succeed and be supported appropriately. There was also a talk in the opening remarks about mega projects, catalytic projects, IRDP projects, and the journey that was outlined by Mr. Tati is a journey that where we need to develop complex financing structures. And those big developments offer a variety of opportunities. And there are roles for different players, both as contractors and developers, as well as professionals in that field. And there's an opportunity to create new entities, to give opportunities for small entities to grow within developments that last for 10 years. And if there's a nurturing environment in those developments, it becomes useful. I know that Bbcbe has got engagements on its own with ISA in terms of creating that space as a financier in this area and creating new financing structures. We would hope that the big anchor developers, Black-owned, transformed developers can attract finance from the private sector with some collaboration with us perhaps taking junior partnership. But we also know that there would be opportunities for inclusion that require unique financing, and we would want to be there to finance those other developers that are participating in these projects as developers within that bigger development, as contractors within that bigger development, and we would want to provide that type of support. That is what we putting on the table. That is the aspiration on those elements that have not been put in place yet, aspiration and the direction that we would want to journey with the Black Business Council, particularly the built environment. The last slide really is outlining what the process is, that we calling for applicants, we calling on the chapter for youth to engage in detail if that platform is required, the chapter for women to engage and see what those unique requirements are. But this is broadly the application process that we have from origination, pre-assessment, full appraisal, the approvals within the organization in terms of governance rules of our credit policy, and up to signing of loan agreements. And this process takes as fast as how the applicant and the requirements are met in terms of what is outlined. It can be as short as pressures are requiring. If somebody comes, has got a tender, has to be on site within a period of 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and the documents are there, the process can be speedy. But if there's still certain documents that are still outstanding, or the contractor realized in the middle of the project that I actually need financing and backing in this regard, it will be different circumstances, but we try and speed the approvals as fast as possible. Thanks, Program Director. I would want to also add my word on the remarks that were open, that this is just a beginning of a journey. It is a journey to make sure that the complexion of the industry changes, and it changes significantly, but not just about transformation. The industry requires extra capacity, and that extra capacity will come with the growth of enterprises that are sitting in the Black Business Council to make sure that as we change the complexion, we increase the capacity to deliver projects in the sector. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Thank you, Mr. Gweta. My mouse is very slow to open. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, we're looking forward to hearing from you. You have heard the crux of the NHFC value proposition. Today, we are about enhancing pathways for transformation in the human settlements value chain. I'm sure through this presentation, you have found your niche. You know where in the value chain you operate. You've identified the value that this relationship will bring to you. The BBC has committed to facilitating entry and significant participation for you as members.